Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of The Housemaid, also known as Hanyo, a Korean movie from 1960 that was directed by Kim Ki-young, and is still considered to be one of the classics from this industry. This is occasionally listed as a horror movie, but I personally would consider it to be a dramatic thriller. A piano teacher, Mr. Kim, works at a factory of primarily female employees as a piano accompanist for the factory's extracurricular choir group, and Mr. Kim is quite popular among the women at the factory. One of them pressures her friend to write a letter to Mr. Kim confessing how much she is infatuated by him. This ends poorly, as her friend is subsequently suspended from the factory. This woman attempts to further pursue Mr. Kim by taking up his offer of piano lessons, which he does to earn some additional money. So this guy's a real chick magnet. Unfortunately for the ladies, he also has a pregnant wife and 2 children. And after his wife becomes too exhausted to clean the house, Mr. Kim requests recommendations from the factory ladies for a potential housemaid. Enter Myung-sook, a cleaner at the factory, to take the job. And this young woman behaves rather strangely as the new housemaid, catching rats with her hands, teasing the children, and spying on the husband as he engages in his daily affairs. Now, personality-wise, our male protagonist seems to be pretty stiff early on, at least based on some of the moments during the first act of the film. Like for example, did he really need to report that lady for hitting on him at the factory? He could have simply denied her, maybe ignored the letter, moved on with his life, but I guess he technically played by the rules because the factory does have a policy against this practice, but there was probably a better way of handling the situation. But in any case, the ladies at the factory are not the primary threat. It's the housemaid. Now, this woman is attractive and youthful, and the plot synopsis mentioned, she's not afraid of wild rats, which is kind of a red flag, because those things could be nasty. But I did appreciate how this film does not immediately portray her as a threat. It's not like this girl is a nutcase who does crazy stuff like just because. Early on, she has more of a mischievous vibe to her, and she does not portray like serial killer qualities or anything like that. So, in fact, when she does become a little bit more mentally unstable and pissed off, as a viewer, you kind of understand the reasons why. The husband and wife do have a hand in destabilizing the structure of the household, and they are responsible for some of the bad stuff that happens. So this movie has a little bit more multidimensionality than you might expect going into it. The family unit is realistically portrayed. The wife, maybe a little bit snippy and cold at first, but her personality warms up afterward, similar to the husband. There's a little rivalry between the son and daughter, which is, what you see in real life. So it's pretty nicely presented core family unit here. Now, there are agreed upon rules that are eventually created after the housemaid enters and begins to interact with everyone. Like, for example, the father allows her to smoke cigarettes on the down low, but she must not touch the piano. And the violation of some of these boundaries begins to destabilize the family unit and cause some conflict. Now, thriller-wise, this is more of a psychological affair. It's not like a gore fest or anything like that. Instances of blackmail and manipulation occur. There are certain setups that you'll notice early on, like the box of rat poison. Will it come into play? How will it come into play? Or is it simply a red herring? And since his father is, truly the hot guy in town, that aspect also causes more problems with women at the factory. So, by the midpoint of this movie, these psychological aspects and conflicts come into play more fully. And, the father figure here gets into a situation that could go bad at any moment. It becomes a stressful situation, and it's, when you think about his situation, it's almost impossible to maneuver his way out of it without avoiding some kind of consequence. And, the way they structure it, it does create some anxiety, and it is entertaining, because you're wondering if and when the crap's going to happen. Now, as an added bonus, the 1960s era is interesting to see on film. The factory seems to be using materials. They only show it for a few seconds, but they seem to be using materials such as yarn or string to create clothing or perhaps rugs or something like that. I also like the black and white camera work. There are some nice tracking shots in this with some dynamic camera movements. The camera moves quite a bit in this as well, which I liked, and infuses some energy. And some of the framing of shots with the rainstorm outside the windows on the rainy nights is pretty cool. So this director has a visual flair about him. In terms of criticisms, there are a few pockets of dullness near the beginning, maybe a few. But it does move along nicely once the conflicts begin to compile. And if you wanted to look for plot holes, you could probably find some here. But I kind of expect that from thrillers to some degree. Also, I'm not sure how I feel about the last few minutes of the movie, which has an overt lesson regarding morality. So, likely a product of its time, but I don't know, I felt like it was a bit odd. But I have to admit, I enjoyed The Housemaid even more than I did back in the day. It has this sensationalistic, almost soap opera-like entertainment value to it. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. Currently available streaming on the Criterion channel as well as Amazon. And as always, folks, I'll see you next time.